but I hadn't applied before myself for an ERC Synergy Grant. So for me, it was actually also kind of a learning curve, a nice experience to see from the inside how it works. And I don't have to deal with this here. It has already been mentioned very clearly, the different evaluation steps and so on. Let me maybe just go to a slide where I have a number of recommendations, and they are not very structured as such, but I would like to start with that you have as much chance as a Nobel Prize winner to get an ERC Synergy Grant as well as anyone else. Though having a Nobel Prize winner on your team might actually help, is not necessarily a disadvantage. What I mean by that is that if you apply for an ERC Synergy Grant, of course, you should have a very good CV. It must be excellent, and of course, most of the people who apply for an ERC Synergy Grant, they have excellent CVs. So maybe it's not really there where you're going to make the difference. I think the greatest difference you can make with the competitors is in terms of the idea of your proposal. That's where you can really show that you're different than the others, and therefore the project should definitely be more than an optimization or a application of a good idea. What I've seen also that it helps if you have some preliminary data to, it's a very risky project quite often, and if you can show that certain elements of the feasibility, that helps to convince reviewers that indeed what you propose there might work. What I was initially surprised of when I participated as a panel member is that indeed, in contrast to other programs, that your team does not need to be big. 2 partners is enough, and as already mentioned, can be for the same institute, even of the same corridor. Another general recommendation before I go to some more detailed facts is make the life of a panel member or an evaluator as easy as possible, in the sense that we as panel members, we need to look, of course, need to evaluate the different criteria, and it works so much easier if as a panel member you know where to find that particular aspect in your proposal. So it helps, of course, a good written proposal can make a difference and makes a difference. But what is synergy? And that's a difficult one, I find, even personally at this moment, at this point. You see what is synergy when you compare different proposals, and where you then see the ones that really stand out. And these are definitely not the ones that will receive comments like research lines run in parallel, but there is no connection. And the different work packages seem disjunctive, or, well, probably some benefits from the collaboration, but not an effective going beyond individual PIs. So that's clearly not what the synergy is about and what is looked for. As a evaluator, we are looking for groundbreaking, major scientific questions, ambitious ones, and ideally you get a wow feeling when you start reading the proposal. So in terms of synergy, of course, what is important is that the know-how of the group is convincing in terms of its quality, in terms of its content, also in relation to the scope and the complexity of the research program that is tackled. Now, okay, we as evaluators, we need to evaluate quite a number of proposals. For instance, in my case, that was about 20 proposals in step 1. As a generalist, most of the proposals were clearly outside my field of expertise. but it made it really interesting to read those. And when are you getting convinced as a evaluator is when it's clearly indicated why the idea or the project is really disruptive with respect to the state of the art. And also it is pleasing if you got the feeling that you really understand what it is about. So, and that means that the language to be used should be one that also can be appreciated by a generalist, but don't make it too general or too vague or too lengthy, because then that's then also not really appreciated. And I think you have a really great start if after a few sentences, after a few paragraphs, if an evaluator really says or thinks, wow, this is really interesting, I want to know more of this. So that's about step one. In step two is then the second hurdle. And yeah, again, we also there are basically generalists for most of the proposals, but in a few cases we can also be there as an evaluator and an expert evaluator. But as far as your B2 is concerned, so using language that is definitely also readable, or not readable, but is also at the level of the expert evaluator. So people who are really in your discipline. And maybe I have one suggestion I can give is that after step one, as an evaluator, you need to suggest names of referees. And as many of us are not really experts into the field, I think we quite often might look into the reference list that you provide. So that could also be a way to guide, let's say, the selection then of referees later on to the ones that you think are most appropriate to evaluate your proposal. And of course, you always need a bit of luck. Then in terms of step three, the third hurdle, I think most in the interviews, if there are any negative comments then made by the expert referees, they will clearly be brought on the table. You will be asked to comment on those. And quite often, I think depends from panel to panel, but the chair might actually start asking about what is the synergy aspect in your proposal. Finally, give a good impression as a team. So avoid that only the spokesperson is talking. And as a final slide here, I would say a reality check. Yeah, unfortunately, only about 90% even, only about 10% even less will be granted. So 90+% will not be granted. It's a huge investment of time. And well, of course, it has been mentioned that take care the negative evaluation might have an impact on the eligibility for future calls, being it the synergy or other calls. But if you really believe in it, I would say go for it, but select a topic and research question and partners you really believe in. And if it turns out that you're unlucky, if you really have done it with the conviction that you have a great proposal, I think you should definitely have enough material or to retry or to use that material for other types of applications. So yes, by this I come to the end of this short presentation. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to address